Lesotho is a kingdom situated in the eastern part of southern Africa and is surrounded by the Republic of South Africa. The kingdom covers 30,355 kilometers square of 60% represents rangelands, 9% arable land, and the remaining part mainly mountains and steep hills. Over the past years, Lesotho government successfully completed around 250 classrooms for primary and secondary level. Thus, the quality of the primary education is reported to be declining. Many of the students dropped out and are also repeating classes. This is also because of the increasing number of people having HIV or AIDS. Meanwhile, Lesotho undertook a 2-week nationwide campaign focusing on young people, migrants, men, and traditional healers in order to lessen the cases of HIV or AIDS. Despite the fact that the tourist industry is not completely developed, attractions such as Bushman works of art, dinosaur footprints, natural life, ecological parks, and horse trekking could support an ecotourism industry. However, relatively few tourists are recorded each year. Lesotho's economic environment. In economic terms, Lesotho is one of the world's least developed countries. Lesotho is positioned 136th out of 189 nations in the Doing Business 2014 report, up by 3 spots from a year ago. This little change can be clarified by the presentation of more streamlined methods for property exchanges, which drove Lesotho's positioning for enrolling property to jump up from 157 to 88. In any case, Lesotho scores inadequately to get acknowledged, managing for development grants and exchanging crosswise over fringes and upholding contracts, justifying a lowly ranking in general. But Lesotho is trying to develop a country with a free market economy. It brags couple of characteristic assets and is subject to imported food and materials to meet the fundamental needs of the populace. Almost all families take part in subsistence cultivating, comprising generally of corn, wheat, peas, and beans. However, the exhausted soil does not yield adequate crops to feed them. Thus, Lesotho's economy is fragile even with the benefits it derives from South Africa. Nonetheless, Lesotho's economy is highly influenced by external factors. In general terms, the country's overall economic performance is affected by trends in the world economy. Lesotho's economy is also affected by internal development and constraints. It is argued, for instance, that the liquidation of the Lesotho Agricultural Development Bank and the restructuring of the Lesotho Bank have had a significant impact on domestic economic productivity. Declining activity of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project has also affected economic growth, as have reduced agricultural production, poor performance in public sector utilities, and political instability. Lesotho's cultural social environment. With developing interest worldwide in cultural tourism, this subsector can possibly assume a focal part in the monetary advancement. Lesotho brags various must-see tourist spots. For example, Habarawana Rock Art Interpretation Center, with different other rock craftsmanship destinations waiting created and additionally insured for future eras. The Department of Culture is in charge of securing and advancing Lesotho's national cultural heritage. Indigenous arts and culture are advanced through the cultural policy framework and supporting focuses and exercises of perfection, while backing is additionally being given to activities officially taken by the local committees. Lesotho's wealth of cattle, sheep, and goats gives a premise to a wool of mohair industry. Despite the fact that there are no other extensive commercial enterprises, little commercial ventures and organizations are bolstered by national and outside help and are having some achievement. Maybe the most encouraging, although highly controversial, push to enhance the economy is the Highlands Water Project, which is intended to use the country's profitable asset of water to give power, livelihood, and financial advancement for the all-inclusive community. A significant part of the nation has gotten to be bared of its regular grass spread through uncontrolled munching and surging surface water. Related issues are extreme soil disintegration, soil weariness, and desertification. Because of these issues, the Highlands Water Project has the objectives of controlling, putting away, and diverting water to South Africa. More than 3.5 million trees, generally eucalyptus, have been planted as a feature of a ravine control program, and for generation of fuel shafts. Previously, numerous social welfare projects were sorted out on the nearby level or by missions. In any case, the requirement for purposeful activity to ease hardships realized by the extreme dry spells prompted the creation in 1965 of a social welfare development. According to a particular website, the government of Lesotho is a constitutional monarchy with the capital in Maseru. The country is divided into 10 administrative districts. The legal system is based on English common law and Roman Dutch law. The executive branch has a king as chief of the state, and since 1996, King Letsie III has filed his position. The legislative branch is composed of bicameral parliament with a senate appointed by the ruling party and an assembly chosen by the popular vote. The judicial branch is the High Court with a chief justice appointed by the monarch. The monarchy is hereditary and is a living symbol of national unity with no executive legislative powers. In January 1993, Lesotho became a democracy. The constitution was adopted on April 2, 1993. Lesotho has made enormous advances through sacred and appointive changes, which brought about the presentation of the MMP discretionary framework, which prompted critical political resource. For example, a comprehensive parliament, political security, and, essentially, rotation of political energy to a justly chose coalition government. The judicial system consists of the High Court, the Court of Appeal, subordinate courts, and the Judicial Service Commission. The members of the High Court are the Chief Justice, who is appointed by the Chief of State, acting on the advice of the Prime Minister, and an unspecified number of Puisne judges, appointed by the Chief of State, acting on the advice of the Judicial Service Commission. The Court of Appeal, which meets semi-annually, is headed by a president appointed by the Chief of State, acting on the advice of the Prime Minister, and includes an unspecified number of justices of appeal, appointed by the Chief of State, acting on the advice of the Judicial Service Commission. Parliament has the power of establishing subordinate courts and courts martial. The High Court has unlimited original jurisdiction over civil and criminal matters, as well as appellate jurisdiction from subordinate courts. Subordinate courts, comprising resident magistrates' courts, judicial commissioners' courts, and central and local courts, administer statute laws, while chiefs administer customary and tribal laws. There is no trial by jury. Military courts have jurisdiction only over military cases and their decisions are final.